yeah, so Thursday night's call-in show talking about Matty P. And Chris said he's worried that it could be a culture killer, and I thought, ooh, that's a really good topic. But before we can dive into what would kill a culture, we first need to define what is Ohio State's culture in the football program. We talked about this during the season a little bit, and we had trouble defining that. So, tonight, this exercise is for us to kind of try to define what is Ohio State's culture. Now, there's a lot of different ways we can approach this, but how I would like to think of it is this kind of writing a mission statement, if you will, for the program is a way to kind of maybe narrow what the focus of that culture might be, and then trying to give examples as to why you picked that definition. Okay, so I'll leave it up to you guys who would like to go first, and if no one wants to volunteer, I'll be happy to go first. But does anybody want to jump on it first? Nope. Okay. I will go first then. Here is how I defined Ohio State's culture in the football program over at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I said, the culture is to fight for everything you hold dear: faith, family, and football. Now, here, let me give you examples of what I mean by that. Ryan Day talks about fighting a lot. Fight for this, fight for that. You have to fight for it, right? So much so that I just listened to a interview where RJ, his son, was asked to talk about what like a slogan or something he holds dear in his heart to try to motivate him in his life. And he said, "My dad talks about the word fight a lot," and he goes, "That resonates with me as a player." And he goes, "You need to do that for everything in your life." He's like, "When I'm in the classroom, I need to fight to have good grades. I need to fight to make sure that I need to fight to make sure that I protect what's dear to me. I need to fight for my brothers on the football team." And so I took that and I expounded upon that and I said, what would Ryan Day said we need to fight for? And he's mentioned it many times. Faith, family, and football. He talks about that a lot. I think that's the culture at Ohio State. And I don't think you have to look very far to define that faith part, right? The players are so open about that on this team that's a part of the culture, whether you like it or not. That is the part of the culture at Ohio State is the faith aspect. Family. How long have we heard about the Brotherhood? I mean, that's been around since Urban Meyer or before him, even, right? I think that is definitely ingrained in the culture at Ohio State. And if we could go back one, the faith aspect, I believe that was back even when Tressel was coach, right, with the playbook and things. So faith, family, and then Ohio State football. Let's go all the way back to Woody Hayes here, right? Like nothing was greater than Ohio State football, right? So I think those are the three things that Ryan Day would say. Those are what's worth fighting for: faith, family, and football. And so I think that to me kind of defines what the culture is at Ohio State. A $5 super chat from Bobby Mack. How about a list of the best players from the top sports: men's and women's basketball and hockey, football, softball, baseball, track, and soccer? My gosh, that could not be done tonight. I promise you, that would take a ton of research.
I am way too
That's
lazy for
that's
that.
multiple shows.
That is multiple shows, Bobby Mack, and that is something that I will definitely write down as something we need to look into. But thank you
Tell you
for
what,
the
Bobby,
idea.
whoever you choose, I agree.
But if you remember, we did do a top. What did we do? A top 50 athletes of all time at Ohio State a few years back.
It was football. Was it? Was it?
No, we did
Oh,
all athletes because we had Jesse Owens on there, Nicholas was on there.
we did that.
We did that. You and I did that.
I don't remember doing that.
We did.
Oh wow. Well,
And
you need
I think
go
we had
find that show, Chris, and let's
I
just
think
regurgitate it.
I think we had an article to boot that I put up on the website at the same time.
Really? I must have forgotten this. All right, who would like to go next?
I can.
Okay.
So for me, I think it is respect, integrity, and perseverance. Um, I think it's an evolving culture. I will say that, but I don't think there's any doubt that there's a great respect for the game. There's respect between Ryan Day and his players that is, I think, unmatched um, in sports right now. I mean, um, Ryan Day truly cares for his players, and that's reciprocated. Um, integrity, I think that despite what you would read on some of these scum websites, we run one of the cleanest programs in the country.
Mhm.
And Ohio State is not going to tolerate you breaking the rules. And if we find out you're going to do it, unlike them, we are going to actually report ourselves and take our spanking like a good little toddler. Um, Everything we do is above board. And I think a lot of that ties in, Eric, to the character of the players that are recruited, as well as the faith aspect of this program. Integrity is a huge part for me. And then perseverance. My God, we were all over Ryan Day and the kids on this program following that Michigan game. Myself and everybody else. Um, these kids came together and overcome those losses. You did it. Oh, Rose. They did it this year. Make national. The only time they failed was last year versus Missouri.
And we lost Chris. All right. I will keep that up there, Bobby, until Chris comes back. So, Heather, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So I actually have two facets to this because I think there are two facets to this team now. And the first one is have faith in the next man up. Because look how many injuries we had on our offensive line this year, and look how everyone just stepped into that role. And it's been the same over and over and over again. It's been that next man up mentality. But I think that the biggest impact that Ryan Day has on the culture is mental health matters. He's such an advocate for mental health, and he's such an advocate for it's okay to not be okay, that I think it makes these players trust him more. They love each other more. They're a lot more open with each other. So I think that mental health, he donated $1 million when he just got that contract extension. He's donated millions to his own fund. He has experienced massive loss, and he's made it okay for these players to say, I am not okay, which I think actually impacts them on the field, because you go to work and you're having a bad day, you're going to have a bad day at work. You go on the field and you're not mentally okay, it's going to show. So I think I think that the impact that he's made with mental health has just been huge. So I would say have faith in the next man up, and then mental health matters would be the two facets of the culture I think that Ryan Day is fostering.
That's a really good point, Heather, to bring up mental health because it's such a part of the culture at Ohio State that it literally has saved Harry Miller's life.
Right. Right.
And at the end of the day, we celebrate championships as Ohio State fans, but we should celebrate the fact that that young man is still alive more than anything. So, so
Well, do you guys
good point.
remember in 2014, was it Costa George when, so that it happens, and unfortunately it happened. So, for a head coach of his visibility to recognize that, it's everything.
Yeah, yeah, good. That's a good point. All right, Corey, what you got, man?
Well, let's also not forget recently passed Ben Chrisman. Unfortunately,
And Crispin. Yeah.
I don't know the official report, but the way the UNLV web X whatever posted it sounds could have been a
Yeah.
suicide. Um, Prayers for his family. Obviously, it's horrible, and you know how Ryan Day would have handled that situation. I'm not saying that Dan Mullen and them didn't do anything, and I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I don't know what happened there, but you know, we have proof that Ryan Day would have been all over that. Um, as far as the culture is concerned, I didn't even know what to say about that until the Denzel Burke interview with Chimby Chekwa and Brian Browning, because Shane Larson's a guy who loves culture. I'm usually not one that thinks about it too much, but it got me to think, Eric, and I appreciate that. Um, I'd say high standards within the Brotherhood is their culture at this point. It's obviously I'll start with the back end of it. The Brotherhood part of it is obviously it's been going on forever, but I think Ryan Day really pushes this program to say, hey, when things get rough, we have each other, and that's it. We can't look outside the program. We got to Ohio versus the world. It's within our brother. We got to rely on each other, lean on each other, and I think that showed this season more than any season in Ryan Day's tenure. And I'd say the high standards, because Denzel Burke said something very interesting that I don't think too many people caught. He said if we didn't fix what was happening on the defense side of the ball after the Oregon game, we were going to have another losing season. And I'm like, another losing? You don't have losing seasons. And to them, not winning the national title is a losing season. Talk about pressure and high standards that they'll have to live with, which actually is the reason they need a strong brotherhood, because it's never going to go according. It's not always going to go according to plan. In the past 3-4 years, it really hasn't. And this year, they really had to lean on each other, especially after that Michigan loss. And we saw the clips of Lathan Ransom. We saw the clips of the leadership in the practices and Ryan Day in those group meetings. And they really leaned on each other within the Brotherhood. But they also know they got to live up to high standards. So they have to pick each other up to meet those standards. And they did this year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely, Corey. Chris, do you want to finish your thought? You broke up on us pretty bad at the end there, and it looks like you had to go restart your router, maybe.
Yeah. So I believe I was just, I had talked about, I was just starting to talk about the perseverance aspect, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you look at what they had to overcome this year specifically, but over the course of the last few years, the only time they really didn't show strong after losing that rivalry game was when they faced Missouri. And they had a ton of people sitting that one out.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at it, I mean, you lose to that team up north, you come back, you have a strong game in the Rose Bowl. You lose to that team up north, you have a strong run in the playoffs this year. This team is the model of perseverance. And myself included, we were calling for heads. We were calling for Ryan Day's head. We were done with some of these players. We were down on everyone. Eric, you said that they broke you, as a fan.
Yeah.
And they, instead of just phoning it in and moving on, they pushed the reset button and persevered through this. So to me, uh, you know, respect, integrity, perseverance, that is what this program is all about.
So it's funny that none of us, I mean, we all mention aspects of football, but none of us mention national championships and winning Big Ten titles. And none of that is what was mentioned when it comes to the culture.
I kind of did.
If
Yeah, don't you think you have to have you can't have one without the other? I think it leads to that. So you
Right.
can't have that toughness, you can't have that next man up, you can't have that perseverance if you're not pursuing that title. So I think it kind of just goes without
Well, and
for
that
me. You
I
guys
think
said it goes
Denzel
without
specifically
saying.
mentioned that, essentially saying we would have had another losing season.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, you're right. And that was a great interview, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
But I guess my point is that it's not the end all be all though, right? Because I mean, let's take Georgia for instance. If I were to say to you now, what's Georgia's culture? I mean, you're immediately going to go
DUI,
to immediately drag racing and winning SEC titles, right? Like that's the, you know what I mean. And there was a time at Ohio State when I gotta be careful how I word this. There was a
Just
time
throw it out there, Eric.
Well, there was a time when um, having a really good level of man, I got to be so careful. We were breaking the law a lot.
Well,
Players players were
right.
in trouble with the law a lot
It
at
was
Ohio
absolutely.
State.
anarchy and chaos.
Okay, uh, you hardly hear about that anymore.
Right.
We're doing a
I
good
mean,
job hiding it. Yep. I'm just
And the
kidding.
amazing thing is, Eric,
that's what Michigan fans will tell
in,
you,
in an era of social media, when you're constantly
right?
scrutinized by everyone with a phone on their camera, it's amazing that there aren't more incidences. And I think that says a lot to the character of the young men that Ryan Day and his coaches recruit.
It does absolutely, but like let's just take for instance the two players who got kicked off the team a couple years ago for the incident that happened with the young lady, right? And Ryan Day kicked them off, and then you
They
have
were
the
found innocent.
They
well,
were
I
found
know.
innocent.
right, but you see what like the standard was so high that there wasn't even a wait and
Yeah.
see or like
Don't put
Yeah, but
yourself
you
in that position.
we're going to get into a whole new show here because you can't wait and see anymore when there's accusations like that.
Correct.
You're automatically guilty in the public's opinion. And
Mhm.
please don't come at me. I'm just saying you are automatically guilty until proven innocent now
You're
when
100% right.
and who was it? Gary on Conley. It was it Gary on Conley that his whole NFL career was absolutely
Mhm.
obliterated, shot straight to the sun because somebody made a false accusation against him
Yes.
and he fought it and he won
Mhm.
and he sued her for defamation for $1 and he won, but the guy missed out on millions of dollars. So
Mhm.
you have to, that's a slippery slope with some of the programs that have these accusations because you don't know how many of them are true versus how many of them are. Some are very valid, but I would compare it more to a Georgia culture where they're absolutely breaking the law hands down without question. There's assaults, there's there's drunken disorderlies, there's all kinds of stuff that
They're
goes.
this generation's University of Miami.
They are actually, but I
Mhm.
mean, they are. And you just don't see that at Ohio State because Ryan Day, I don't know if it's that he recruits, any better than anybody else. It's just that you have that you have that culture of
mm-hmm,
wanting to do better. You want to do better for the guys that you're playing for. You want to do better for your coaches. You want to do better for your friends, for your family, because that's what Ryan Day instills in you. And that's what his
Mhm.
coaching staff instills in you. So it's not, I don't think it's that we're recruiting better people. I think that we are cultivating a better environment for them to learn and grow because you can't just throw these kids, especially now with NIL, you can't
Mhm.
just throw these kids into $1 million deals into the biggest spotlight of their lives and just say good luck. You have to teach them. They're
Biggest
kids.
example of that is Judkins. Everybody said he had a terrible character before he got here. He gets here, he's a model citizen. I'd
Yeah,
like to think our culture had something to do with that. So,
I guess that's he's so loved and all the things
mhm.
that he did for kids. And I mean, he turned out to be one of the greatest human beings, so that's a fantastic.
Maybe the Browns ought to send Deshaun down for a while, see what happens.
They can just send him straight to the sun. Straight to the
no,
sun.
that's the next episode when we
just
talk
lock the
about
Woody
culture
up. Don't
killers.
don't let him in.
Do not let him and don't let you can have me on that show. I've got very strong opinions on him now. Not because
So
of what he was accused of, because of how bad he is.
so this all goes back to my initial point, and thank you all for stressing this for me. But the culture is, and Ryan Day said this in an interview that he just did with the podcast where he said we won this the right way, and I thought what an interesting thing to say,
Yeah.
like we didn't and it was brought up in context to NIL, okay? Meaning we didn't go out and buy a bunch of players. We used our NIL to keep the guys here to bring them back essentially. But I think it goes beyond that when he says we did this the right way. We won this the right way is we didn't cheat to do it, right? We didn't go out and just buy a championship, although the SEC's crying that we did. We didn't. You look at how they won this thing, and I think the culture has just as much to do with how this team was able to win. If we didn't have a right culture, there's no way we would have got off the mat after that November 30th loss to beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame the way we did.
Yep.
Without culture, that's impossible to do. And that's my 2 cents on that. Do you guys agree, disagree? What do y'all think?
Agree.
Agree
I
100%.
agree. Yep.
Who could disagree with that? I'd
Yeah.
seriously like to meet the person who disagree with that.
There's someone. I promise you, there will be someone.
Go look on Twitter. There'll be somebody.
Yep, they'll probably be in our DMs later today.
It'll be a scum fan. It'll be a scum fan. Guaranteed.
Bobby Mack, they said we may not recruit the highest rated player, but the best person for our program. That's a great
Correct.
point. Yeah.
Some of the best players to watch are the 3-star because
Mhm.
everybody is watching the 5-stars are already supposed to be great. You know, you have a Caleb Dow. He's great. He's going to be great. You have a Jeremiah Smith, number 4 player in the country. You know he's going to be great. You don't know how great, but you know they're going to be great. But when you start getting into those 3-star recruits and seeing how they develop, you know, maybe they were really a 3 or a 5 or a 4 or a 5-star, but they just didn't have the right coaching around them, or they didn't have the right equipment around them. They didn't have the right culture around them. And seeing them develop, I think, is really the telltale sign of a great program. Ohio State doesn't recruit 5-star, 4-star players. They do, you know, but not every single player that is great is a highly touted recruit. It's the development of these players. And I think that that's where we excel in the development.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
That's really good, Heather.